This is TWiT.
It reported yesterday that Facebook had manipulated the news feeds of nearly 700,000 users for a psychological study. The experiment made news feeds either more positive or more negative to test whether this would affect what people post on Facebook. The company was slammed with criticism for doing this, but a consensus formed that it was more or less okay because Facebook's terms of service allowed it. All users theoretically agree to the terms of service as a condition for using Facebook. But now, an exclusive by Kashmir Hill on Forbes revealed that Facebook didn't add language about research until months after the study was conducted. Kashmir Hill joins us to talk about her exclusive. Welcome, Kashmir.
Thanks for having me on.
Well, can you review for us the facts around Facebook's mood study? What did they do exactly, and why did they do it?
So this happened 2.5 years ago in January 2012, and for a week they reduced the positive content in about 155,000 users' feed, reduced the negative content in another group to see if it affected their mood as measured by whether they posted more positive or negative material. Some people think that's bad science, in that what you're posting doesn't necessarily reflect your mood. But the bigger questions were around this was done with academic researchers, so there are questions about whether there's informed consent here from the subjects of the study, and then about whether Facebook had kind of crossed a line by doing a psychological study on unsuspecting users without asking them explicitly beforehand or telling them about it afterwards.
Yeah, this is Joe. Kashmir, are we also starting to see a little bit of revisionist history here? I mean, did Facebook's terms of service actually allow for this, or did they sort of go back and rewrite history in terms of what they're up to here?
So a lot of journalists, as we were telling the story, we pointed at the data use policy and we criticized it because we said, oh, the word research only appears in a very small part of this very large data use policy that most people don't read anyways. But then when I looked back at the data use policy that was in place in January 2012, even that little bit about research wasn't there. Facebook says that doesn't matter, that they tell users, we'll use your information for lots of different things, including improving our service, improving our products. And so they say that this study was part of improving Facebook, figuring out what makes their users happier and more engaged with the site.
One of the interesting things about this, and you pointed out in your article, is that this whole research that they did, again, as you found out, which happened without the word research being part of the terms of service, happened in January 2012, which is 2 months after Facebook settled a complaint with the FTC about, quote, unfair and deceptive practices around user privacy. So they were in hot water at the time for abusing users' privacy. And they just jumped right in with this study. And then it sounds to me, I mean, there's no way to really know unless Facebook reveals what really happened. But it sounds to me like somebody within Twitter, a lawyer or something, found out they did the study and then went back and checked the terms of use, and then found that there was nothing in there that really specifically said that it was okay for users to be treated like lab rats. So they added the point that you pointed out about research.
And that I can't speak to. I don't know what happened internally, but they were being watched by the FTC right now during this period. And the other thing that's come out really today is that there was no age filter on the study. So this included users under the age of 18, theoretically. And the FTC usually gets like pretty upset about how Facebook treats teens. And so I'm sure that's going to make things more complicated for them.
I'm sure it will. Now, this concept of informed consent, personally, I believed even before I found out from your article that they didn't have the word research in their terms of service. I didn't think, even if they did have it, I wouldn't think that that's informed consent. People, like, what is informed consent? What does informed mean? If people don't read the terms of service, or even if they read it and don't remember it, and I'm certain that far more than 99% of Facebook users don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of the terms of service. They are not informed about what's in the terms of service. How can that be informed consent in a way that satisfies a scientific requirement for informed consent? This sounds just like, forget about, user privacy. This just sounds like really bad science and possibly abusive science.
Yeah, and so there's a separate kind of drama around the fact that this study did kind of go through. So in the 1970s, we created institutional review boards because scientists were doing too many creepy studies, like getting subjects to think that they were shocking someone to death. So now most academic studies that involve human research have to go through an ethics board first. And this study actually got looked at by an ethics board, but the ethics board said, oh, it's fine because the data set is coming from Facebook. Our academic researchers aren't touching it. So they didn't really even look at the idea of informed consent because that's not something that's needed when the research is only being done by a corporation.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah,
They can't be allowed to
complicated.
Yeah, they can't. It would be a horrible precedent if that made it okay, because then corporations would be doing all the, corporations would be shocking people to death, and then the researchers would be like, hey, wasn't us. We just got the data from a corporation.
Well, defenders say that, all companies are doing A/B testing all the time, where they put something in front of you and then put something different in front of you and see how, which thing you respond more to, and that's a kind of psychological study as well. But I just see this, what Facebook was doing, as different because you're like actually measuring people's mood and putting negative things in front of them, hoping that it causes them to feel negatively. And that just seems like it's in a different category to me.